Action. Okay, this is Into the Psyche, and this is episode 1. And you have to apologize. I have to apologize. Sorry, I do have a slight cold coming off when I'm trying to record this, so bear with me. This episode is called "You Touched Fire." Don't beg it to be a home, and it's all about sovereignty after sex. And specifically, we're talking today about casual sex. So, hi, my unconscious psychonauts. Paige here, your host for today's episode. Today, we're going somewhere uncomfortable, but honest. We're talking about casual sex, the wounded masculine, oxytocin, erotic awakening, and why so many women, logically, say they're fine with no strings attached, casual hookups, while their body is quietly actually forming a bond. This episode isn't about shame, it's about sovereignty, and it may challenge something you've been telling yourself. If you've ever asked yourself, why did that affect me more than I expected? Stay with me. So let's talk about casual sex and the unconscious body, and start here. This is the thing that I think most modern conversations skip, and it's where most people completely oversimplify it as well. Your conscious mind is saying yes, and the body is often saying something else. So when we consent to a casual hookup or a no strings attached with someone, it's typically happening initially in the ego. We are giving our consent mentally. I'm like, yes, I can do this. However, bonding happens in the body, and meaning making happens in the unconscious. So when a woman consciously decides, I don't want a relationship, I'm okay with something casual, I won't get attached, I don't want anything serious either, I can keep it just light. Yet, so many women still experience attachment, longing for that person, grief, confusion, fantasizing, and we can get ourselves really kind of in a bit of a twist in these situations. And it's not because she's lied to herself, but it's because the psyche, it's not a spreadsheet. And even just from a biological point of view, S3X releases oxytocin. And oxytocin creates bonding, safety, imprinting. And this is not optional or ideological. Oxytocin creates a feeling of safety. It is the hormone that creates a feeling of attachment to someone else. And it also creates a bit of an imprint on our psyches of that person. And it can also increase trust, closeness, and it softens our psychological defenses, which we'll talk a bit more about in a moment. And then you have intimacy with that person, and afterwards they feel so much more significant than they were before. Something changes. So we can't necessarily kind of independent go out of this. This is the mammalian brain biology. We can't outsmart oxytocin. We can't mentally just override it. And I really want you to honor that your body is going to release these hormones, and know that also you have no control over it. So if you do choose to have a kind of casual relationship or a casual experience, it doesn't mean you're weak or needy or did something wrong if afterwards you've experienced anything that we just said a minute ago. It means that actually your nervous system is doing exactly what it was evolved to do, and it's linked to survival. So the issue isn't casual sex. The issue is casual sex without embodied truth. And as you well know, and if not, my podcast and my shows are all about Jungian psychology, depth psychology, transpersonal psychology. So this is the framing that I'm taking on whatever topic I feel like discussing and synthesizing and putting out there. So, I think Carl Jung would not pathologize this as like a problem or its symptoms. He would honor it. He would completely honor this experience and process. It's very human. And I just want to circle back to consent quickly. So, consent, even if you do consent, it doesn't necessarily mean you're psychologically ready for a casual encounter. And even if you're psychologically ready in your mind, that doesn't necessarily mean you're ready for the full embodiment of having casual sex without bonding to the wrong person. So even though the ego might say, I'm fine, the body is saying, oh, this feels intimate. And the unconscious is actually saying, oh, this is union. There's these kind of 3 different layers going on. And Jung would describe, I think, the ego in our kind of psyche landscape is like one small island in the psyche, or you might think of that classic psychological visual image of the iceberg. It's like the tip of the iceberg, and you've got the water, and then you've got all this stuff into the depths. Some of it we can even see, and some of it we literally cannot even see how far it goes down. And instinct lives deeper than our rational. The unconscious is vast. It's like the depths of the ocean that have not been explored. So from a perspective, if you're wanting to have a casual encounter or relationship, then the task is not to suppress it. It's about consciously relating to it. So I'd really urge you to not shame the bond. Don't deny it either, but don't inflate it to like, the bond is my destiny and this person's going to come around and they're going to change their mind. Observe it, name it, and integrate it. So at this point, hopefully you're kind of feeling the same way I'm feeling, which is the problem isn't oxytocin. Bonding can turn our brains to start to tell us this story that, oh my God, he must be my person. And then if they haven't texted, we're thinking, why hasn't he texted? What is he doing? I'm being rejected. I'm not good enough. He's moved on to somebody else. And that can cause us a lot of pain and suffering. So that is not oxytocin. That's actually shadow interpretation. That's our wounds coming up. That's the part from our shadow that's coming up and has got activated through this experience. And even just like historically and in different cultures, sex is seen as a ritual. It is seen as a ritual of union. 2 people merge into one, at least for a period of time, in that physical merging, right? So that also means that psychologically we're merging with somebody else for a period of time, even if it is casual, because archetypally it is. In the psyche, sex represents merging, the dissolving of boundaries and those psychological defenses that come down. We're vulnerable, we're exposed. Sex every time is a bit like a temporary ego death. We lose our identity for a second. We're in pure instinct and feeling and sensations. It's the union psychologically of the masculine and feminine polarities. So the unconscious actually, at the more deeper level, is actually recognizing it as symbolic union. And that's why I believe it often hits a bit deeper than people expect afterwards. Even when before we've given consent, we're thinking, we're telling ourselves kind of rationally, like, this is fine, I'm not going to catch feelings. And then afterwards, we have a deeper affect. So on the flip side, I do want to say that obviously bonding to the right person is so incredibly powerful and magic for both people. Because when bonding is mutual, reciprocal, conscious, it actually deepens our attachment to someone. It strengthens the 2 people's, the masculine and feminine's bond. It can create the feeling, it creates the feeling of safety, when it's with the right person. And it also supports individuation through secure attachment. When you can feel merged with someone and you feel emotionally safe, physically safe, spiritually safe, that can actually be a really supportive force to support you to become the person who you were always meant to be. And Carl Jung quotes this and says, it's one of my favorite quotes, and I may not get exactly right, but basically it says, the gift of a lifetime is to be exactly who we were meant to be. And that is the Jung's process of what individuation is. It's integrating everything and working towards wholeness. So this is how human pairing bonding works. But bonding to someone who, say, is emotionally unavailable, to someone who's psychologically defended, who doesn't actually want that union, it can create a lot of psychic friction. The bond still forms nonetheless, but then there's not like a safe container for it. So what is the archetype of casual sex then? So from a Jungian point of view, it kind of often, and I would definitely say, look up, ChatGPT, have a bit of a Google, have a look at these archetypes. So like the trickster, the fire initiator, the lover archetype in its shadow form, the Dionysian impulse, it's ecstatic experience, but it's also destabilising internally. So when we're with the wrong person, we can kind of see how this can spiral into something that we probably didn't consciously or rationally of our egos necessarily consent to. So sex activates us physically, emotionally, and mentally. And without the right containment, it can become destructive. If you think about fire without a structure, it's going to be wild and burning, and there's no containers to contain that energy. And it can be initiatory, but without the integration, it can lead to it becoming a wound rather than it being empowering. So if we're able to hold this experience consciously, it can awaken our eros, it can awaken our vitality, which is our energy. It can be a huge confidence boost, and it's great for the body. You can feel such embodiment and pleasure, and it moves stagnant energy and emotions, and it can really make us feel alive again. But if it's held unconsciously, it could activate abandonment wounds, kind of shadow narratives, worth wounds. And that's what today's show, I hope that I'm able to help someone out there to anything you can take away from this to not be in that situation. Like, I would love you to not be in that situation and to be using it for you and not letting it lead to more trauma, essentially. So what would Jung actually say about all this? Because at this point in the conversation, you might be thinking, okay, I get that, the body bonds, oxytocin happens, meaning making is the issue. But if it's really hard and the body is it's really hard because if the body's going to do this anyway, then what do we actually do about it? So Jung didn't believe that instincts were meant to be suppressed. Sex is natural human instinct that activates in our psyche. And he believed that they're meant to be consciously related to. So our instinct, if you're feeling like that desire or you're wanting to be with someone, it's not the enemy. It's not kind of primitive stupidity, and it's not weakness. It is just psychic energy. So when it activates, it can make you feel desire. You might start imagining. That's why we imagine being with someone. We fantasize about them. We might long for something that can be imaginary or an actual person. It can activate projection, vitality. It's just signifying the energy in your system is moving. So it doesn't disappear, but if it's not integrated properly, it can go underground and it could become shadow, which is what I'm wanting to hopefully not happen to you. I don't want you to have an experience and then you feel like something's wrong with you and you feel shame and you attack yourself afterwards. And, as well, erotic energy can also become depression, or you can numb out and disassociate. So the problem is not the bond itself. The problem is the unconscious interpretation of the bond. And I think this is where it gets really tricky because, yes, we can say don't attach meaning to it. But if your brain is literally flooded with bonding hormones, your mind is going to automatically start creating a story. And your brain is going to try and trick you, potentially, maybe, afterwards, into thinking that then this person is my destiny. This could be my person, and I'm going to get married to them and have 5 kids and a house, and we're going to go on holidays and they're going to choose me. So what I want you to be able to do is what a concept that Jung talks about, which is holding the tension of opposites. So think of it like the scales, like I'm holding this side and I'm holding this side equally. If when your psyches are mature, we don't need to collapse into one side or the black or the white. We can hold both with equal gravity, and we can hold both truths at exactly the same time in our psyches. So in this situation, the opposites are, I'm feeling bonded, but then this is casual. This feels really intimate, but it does not have to mean more than it is. I feel activated, but this is not necessarily destiny. So for me, I just think it's about holding the tension of the opposites, which is obviously easier said than done. But if we can bring our awareness to it, then at least we've got a chance. We've got a chance, and that's all we need. So erotic awakening is not the same as love. And this is where it gets a bit more subtle and nuanced, but it can also be super freeing. So I just want you to frame it as, not every sexual connection is meant to become a relationship. Some are just initiations. It could be just an experience that actually awakens your life force energy. Actually, it could awaken your confidence. For instance, if you've had a bit of a dry spell and it might have been quite a long time, having a sexual encounter casually can be really confidence boosting. You can feel so much better in yourself afterwards. You're like, oh yeah, I am wanted, I am desired, which is, that's not a bad thing. It can actually awaken your vitality, like we've talked about a few times, your energy. You usually feel energized afterwards, you feel awake and alive. This energy can also be channeled into creativity. So, you might want to paint or write or do something creative. It can also make your ego feel stronger, so you feel more kind of solid in yourself and who you are. You can kind of get that effect. You can feel a sense of, like I said, being desired. And if you've been through trauma or you've been disassociated or numb, that experience can also make you feel in your body again. So this is eros, but remember, it's not necessarily union. And eros is very sacred if it's held consciously. So I want you to feel desired. I want you to feel the chemistry. I want you to feel the arousal, and I want you to feel the power that comes with during and after, but without demanding it to turn into attachment or proof that you're good enough and worthy enough. The experience can then become really, really healing rather than destabilising. And with casual sex, this is what I would be aiming for. Have fun, feel desired, feel wanted, have someone chase you, enjoy being pleasured, and then refocus on yourself. Don't get trapped in the mind after, like I said, who you are. If you're going to do it for you. Enjoy the fire, but don't get burnt by it. So, let's talk about the wounded masculine without blame, because we haven't really talked much about the man yet in this situation. And I am talking about, I guess I am framing this as male and female, but obviously this could just mean psychologically masculine and feminine energy. So it could be two women, two men together, and usually one has the polar opposite. Someone's usually more embodied of their feminine psychologically and the other more masculine. So I just want to make sure I'm politically correct there and I don't get any haters on my first episode. Emotionally unavailable men, they're not cruel, they're not horrible, they're just really psychologically armored. Especially, men who are shaped by war, trauma, hyper-masculine systems. It's all about physical exercise. We don't talk about feelings or mental health. They might have been emotionally neglected in their childhood. They could have survival identities or influenced by the casual dating culture. Feelings are destabilising to this type of unintegrated man. And let's be honest, I think a lot of men who are happy to have casual sex are usually these type of men. They are avoidant, ambivalent, non-committal. I mean, that's been my experience anyway. So I'm not tarring everyone with the same brush, but this has just been my experience. So I just want you to be aware that unless a man enters shadow work, does the really hard shadow integration work, has an ego death, and consciously relates differently to his masculinity and evolves beyond that past identity, emotional availability is unlikely. It's not because you're not worthy or not good enough, it's just because his psyche is organized around defense. So the uncomfortable truth is, he may never fully see you. So please don't kind of fool yourself or go down those kind of rabbit holes afterwards when that shadow might erupt in you to expect that. Don't have that expectation. Don't demand emotional access. Don't look at him to get a reflection of yourself. You need to look in the mirror yourself and see, I am good enough. I am beautiful inside and out. I've got all these things to offer. And, if he doesn't see that, then it's, his loss. At the end of the day, this type of kind of archetypal man, this kind of pattern, they cannot see deeply without risking collapse. And that is what their egos fear the most. So they cling onto their egos, they cling onto their defensive, and they kind of just batten down the hatches. And it's not your job to fix that. It's not your job to change that. So if you can go in to the situation with, I'm not here to fix this person, I'm not here to change them, I'm not here to get anything from them. I'm here to meet them where they are and enjoy yourself. Like I said, activate that Eros fire and feel it, enjoy it, get all those positive benefits from it, then yeah, you're literally winning. You didn't attract him to be chosen by him. You attracted him to burn without breaking. And that's that tension of opposites again. So, there's that unconscious trap of, why not me? And if you ever fall into that situation, or if you can even look at a past situation you've been in and you've experienced this is coming from your wounded feminine shadow. And we would say this is where you're abandoning yourself and losing your center. And the truth is, this person is not choosing anyone emotionally, and not even himself. Because if he really was choosing himself, he would also reciprocate and commit and not have that fear or avoidance. The path to be in a situation where he can evolve and be the person, again, that, be the person who you're meant to be. And that requires courage. It requires to face yourself, the good, bad, and the ugly. And it's not easy work. It's easier to stay there, but that is their journey, their path. And that's where you kind of have to be able to hold that kind of tension of kind of like, he's in his lane and I'm in my lane. Work is all about, how do I stay whole after activating? So bringing it back to ourselves now. How do I stay centered after my bonding hormones have erupted? So here is the tea, and how oxytocin becomes healing and doesn't become trauma, and how we can integrate it. So we already know and discussed that we can't stop oxytocin. We've kind of understood that today, I hope. But you can decide how you relate to it. So, first of all, I've put together a little way of framing it in a few steps, just as a practical tool to guide you in this situation, or even go back to a past situation and do this as well. So step 1, name the bond without fantasizing. So this is biological bonding, not destiny. Keep that. My body bonded, but that doesn't mean my soul signed a contract. So I just want to reinforce that if we can name that you've had a physical bonding experience and about what's happened during it, kind of from a psychological lens, from a physical lens, we want to kind of stay grounded in the fact that this doesn't mean I'm going to marry him. This doesn't mean we're meant to be. It doesn't mean I've found my future. It means my nervous system did what it was evolved and meant to do. And it also stayed open. Okay? Step 2, anchor back into the self. So, my body has awakened itself through this experience. He was just the vessel, okay? Remember, anchoring back into the self. He was just the vessel. My body awakened itself through the experience. The energy didn't come from him. It was always in you. He just activated it, but he didn't create it. So instead of looping back into him or fantasizing about him, redirect your libido. In Jungian terms, redirect your psychic energy. So you can do this by going to the gym, create something, dress differently, apply for a job, move your body, express yourself, do something that just grounds you back to your body. This would reframe the erotic activation, and it's actually, we can then kind of transmute that activation into creative fuel for you. Do something with it. Use it for yourself. Don't spend your psychic energy giving it to the other person. When it's not integrated, and if we're not kind of doing this step, what we might end up doing is falling into replaying conversations, imagining futures, checking our phone. When do we message? I'm going to be on my phone to my friend for 5 hours talking about it over and over and over and over again, ruminating. What if you do find yourself doing that? Don't shame yourself. Remember at the start we said observe it, name it, and then integrate it. So we can interrupt that loop. So you could listen back to different parts of this podcast to reground your system into all those different aspects of how we can hold both. And just remember, erotic energy is life energy. And if you don't direct it, it attaches. And if you direct it, it transforms, it transmutes. And that's alchemy. It's kind of like magic. Okay, and the final step here is, I've just lost where I was on my notes sheet, so bear with me. Step 3. This is a fun one. Let the ego receive the boost. So remember we talked about earlier, the erotic energy and experience is life affirming. It reminds you you're alive. You can feel confidence. You literally get that afterglow. I know I've had it when I've hooked up with someone, and, well, certain people anyway. I can think of one person in particular, and I've had just such a good time with them, but that was it. And I just had this afterglow. I felt so much better, and I just went on my way. So a lot of women, we shame ourselves for enjoying being desired. So there's nothing shallow about feeling good in your body. The ego getting a boost, it isn't narcissism, it's your nervous system expanding. That's strong. Feel radiant, feel glowing, feel sexy, feel alive, and feel powerful. Let that integrate into your body. If you allow those feelings and don't kind of push against it, embrace them, and don't fall into the shadow side. So don't punish yourself, don't blame yourself, don't go into that kind of shadow material. Really try and embrace it. Then yeah, that's a really fun step. Okay. Step 4, do not turn bonding into identity. So remember, this is not this person is not my verdict. When bonding turns traumatic into that meaning making in the unconscious in our story, and it becomes our identity, I'm the girl men don't choose, the man just gets of me and then replaces me for somebody else and chooses someone else but never chooses me. I fall too hard, there's something wrong with me, I'm too much, I'm not good enough. And that's where our shadow. So instead, it might be, I want you to say this to yourself, but feel it, embody it. You felt close to someone, and that's a gift. That we're wired for connection. You felt alive, and that was good. But it doesn't mean this person's, doesn't mean they're my destiny. It just means that you're responsive to life. And often that is maybe the missing layer. So, final step, and there is a 5th step here. So, lastly, stay in your own energy. Don't want you to be detached. Don't want you to be cold or disassociated or numbing it out. Contained. Healing isn't detachment, it's containment. So, containment might symbolically, in the real waking world, mean You don't text them impulsively. You don't overextend yourself. You don't over-disclose. You don't overanalyze a situation. And emotionally, you don't give him access to parts of you he hasn't earned. You don't mentally rehearse a future with this person. You don't shrink and change yourself to try and then chase him or secure this attention. And from a Jungian perspective, this is where your ego can actually strengthen. And I would say from a transpersonal psychological perspective, this is sovereignty. So stay in your field, own lane, and let him stay in his. If he steps forward, he steps forward. But if he doesn't, the energy stays with you. And that's really, really powerful. Remember, true union doesn't require chasing. When it's mutual, the bond is mirrored, the energy is reciprocal, the containment is a shared container. So if it's meant to become union, it will move towards you without having to collapse toward it. So let the fire expand you, not define you. Sovereignty means you choose this experience for you. You don't chase reassurance. You don't demand emotional access. You don't collapse into fantasy. You don't rewrite your worth. You let the fire move through you, but not consume you. You create the container within yourself to hold this, and that's alchemy. So hold that tension of opposites without regression into your wounds and the shadow, desire and attachment, pleasure without reality and the reality of what it is. Have the fire, but with the boundaries. That's individuation. This moment wasn't meant to necessarily be love. It was meant to wake your body back up. It was meant to wake you back up. And I think especially for people who've been isolated or had really experienced, grief, long periods without touch, emotional and nervous system shut down, having a casual experience in that proper kind of embodied containment can be really healing if you can stay sovereign. It can be a reminder that you are alive. So let it be fire, but don't make it your home. Not every encounter is meant to be a relationship. Some are just archetypal mirrors, initiations. This was eros, but not eros fulfilled. And eros is sacred when consciously held. So if you have dated someone casually or been with anyone casually, don't worry, your true love is coming through other avenues. This just wasn't it. It was just clearing the path for it. And it's all about learning lessons and experiencing life and being human. This is a wrap for today. If you've walked through your erotic fire recently, don't shame yourself for the heat. Just don't mistake it for your destination. Stay sovereign, stay embodied, enjoy and embody that eros fire. And I will hopefully see you in another episode in another journey about a different topic. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. It was fun to create and be able to share. And I really truly hope that you may have got something out of this and everything. So yeah, keep exploring that unconscious mind, and we will meet again soon.